I am Dr. Chakradhar Deshmukh from Nagpur. I am a retired professor of philosophy. I have had the great privilege of being in contact with beloved Avatar Meher Baba for several years since 1932 till the very end. And it is a pleasure for me to say something about him and his work. Very often people ask me what is meant by the word avatar. The concept of the avatar is quite familiar in the East, in particular, particularly in India, and no explanations are necessary. In India, it is taken for granted in many circles, though not everywhere, that God does descend in the human form occasionally, and when God himself comes in the human form, assumes the human form, that descent is called the avatar. However, this idea is not peculiar merely to the Hindus. We find even the Sufis and other mystics, Christian mystics, and many others subscribing to the view that God alone is real and God manifests himself in person and directly in the human form very often whenever there is a special need for a special descent for the resurrection and redemption of humanity. However, in order that we should be able to understand Baba as an avatar, it is not necessary to subscribe to any particular ideology. I am going to present Baba's avatarhood in such a way that it would be possible for any rational person to accept him as nothing but the avatar. There is no doubt that he enjoyed the highest state of consciousness. He brought it down from the highest state of consciousness. He brought it down for us. He released it. He expressed it. He manifested it for us through his great love and through all the many variegated activities of his. There are many facets of his personality, but the word avatar means descent, first of all. And the magnitude of the avatar, how great the avatar is, you will realize when you know the heights from which he came and descended and the depths to which he could descend for our sake, though it was not necessary for him to come down to our level at all. Because God's state, original state, actually is a state of bliss and completeness, and he does not need anything at all from man or from anybody. It's a state of enjoyment of full knowledge, infinite bliss, infinite power, infinite love, a state of completeness of being. And since he does not need anyone and anything, it is not necessary at all for him to assume any types of limitations, even the limitation of assuming the human form. However, he does assume limitations, comes to the lower planes of consciousness for our sake, and while assuming these limitations, taking on these limitations, he becomes the avatar. Avatar is the descent, and he has to come down to the level of the consciousness of those who are to receive his grace and who are to receive his help. A great teacher is one who can talk to the persons in their language. If he just gives the very highest of the thing in his own language and nobody can understand him, if his message goes over the heads of other people, it will not work, it will not touch. But Baba was not only divine, but he was also very human, and he could bring the highest of the high to the common level of ordinary man. It did not require a great Pandit or a learned person in order to understand Baba at all, you see. Any person with a pure heart, with an open heart, even the word pure I am using in the ordinary sense of open heart, without any prejudices, any person approaching him could feel his love and the great blessing, pure blessing, which he brought from the highest of the high. Baba has time and again, several times, confirmed to his Mandali people as well as to masses his avatarhood in different ways. Not only has he said that he is the ancient one, that he is the highest of the high, that he is God himself and all these things, but he has also unequivocally announced his identity with Lord Sri Krishna, Sri Ram, Buddha, Jesus Christ, Prophet Muhammad and so on, and we have witnessed these declarations given in silence by him either through the alphabet board or through his own sign language. He was quite unequivocal in his claim for avatarhood, and when he made that claim, there was a ring of irresistible truth about it, and there is a ring of truth about it. The truth is irresistible. It does not need to be certified by any scriptures or certified by anyone at all. It is true that many advanced monks and saints even have actually testified to his avatarhood. During the travels, many must tours of Baba, there were many advanced persons who have testified to his divinity, highest divinity, and also confirmed his avatarhood.
Why do you believe that Meher Baba is the avatar of this age?
Yeah. Because I know him to be perfect through my own experience in every way, and I know the amount of descent that he undertook upon himself. You see, avatar is a descent in a pure way. You see, I declare it on my own responsibility that he is the avatar. Now, you see, I am saying it from my own point of view, how he is the avatar, you see. Not on anybody else's authority, on my own authority I am saying that beloved Baba is an avatar without fear of any contradiction. I can announce it, I can say it, and say it to anybody, because though I have known him to be the highest of the high, he has actually stooped down to the level of lowest types of service of the very lowly and the lowest types of people. Actually, we have seen him serve humanity. That is an example for all of us. In a very selfless way, he had nothing to achieve thereby, not for recognition, sometimes incognito, in all its forms. The poorest of the poor, he has humbly served, you see.
Yeah. Serve the very poor, like the lepers?
Yes, of course I have seen him serving the lepers, bowing down to them, washing their feet. I have seen him bowing down to the poorest of people, giving them money by his own hands, you see, as his prasad. I have seen him serving food and meals to the lame and the blind and those who were destitute in every way. All these things I have seen. In fact, I am reminded of an event, you see. In Bengal, there was a dreadful famine in, I believe, it was in October 1942. And there in October 1942, I had the pleasure of seeing him do some service. This was completely incognito because we were prohibited from telling everybody that he was there in person. He did not care for publicity and actually did not want it. But when people were starving and dying on the pavements, he actually made us distribute the chapatis to those people. They were actually starving and dying actually on the pavements of Calcutta. They did not have sufficient strength to go and avail themselves of the free food which was being supplied by some charitable institutions in some centers. And he did not also neglect the middle class people. It is supposed that the poorer people have got a greater claim upon God, but actually for God, all classes are the same, all castes are the same. We must admit that Baba had a specially soft corner for the poor people, but all the same, for him all are one and he loved everybody. And the problem of the middle class people in those famine days was that they did not have the courage to go to the places where food was freely given, and some of them committed suicide. So they had to be persuaded to come to some place and accept hospitality. Baba, in fact, went there incognito, put on a hat and specs, and would not allow his name to be known, and insisted that he would bow down to the persons who received a sari or some cloth at his hands, and he served the meals himself, you see. Baba was very stoutly and strongly built, you see. It was very difficult to keep pace with him in physical work. When he served the mass, he bathed the mass with great enthusiasm. We were just holding some soap for him, you see. But he used to handle so many buckets of water. He used to throw them on these mass, bathe them, wash them properly, feed them, also give them kafnis, cloths, etc. In fact, sometimes shave them, make them neat. And internal work which he did with the mass, of course, is absolutely incomprehensible. That is a different story altogether. But we have seen him rendering service to these Videhi Mahatmas, as they are called, those who are not body conscious. These great mass, you see. Sometimes even to the stark mad people, he did not even bother about whether they are spiritually advanced or not. I know that in the Rahuri ashram, he had mixed up the mad people with the God mad people. And he did not distinguish between the two. He said the mad people also need to be served by me, helped by me. And I consider this to be really a sign of the avatar. I look upon him as the avatar because he descended to the very lowest depths, you see. Actually serving the poorest of the poor and actually coming down to their level. You know, in the case of the mass and even these mad people, you see, mad people, they didn't have anything to give either spiritual to the world or to the avatar. Even their latrines were cleansed by the avatar. What more descent of the highest of the high can there be? Look at the tremendous magnitude of the avatar. Avatar is the descent, you see. It is like a great Niagara Fall, you see. Waters flowing down from the highest peak to the lowest of the plains, something like that. And Baba brought the purest waters of eternal life, life divine and love divine, from the very highest state of consciousness and made it available day in and day out every moment for all of us on all planes. And that is the essence of his avatarhood. Does not need to be certified by any scriptures, and nobody needs to just feel shaky about his position as the avatar. Avatar, because of his power, because of his spiritual status, he becomes the center of the universe and he coordinates the spiritual powers of all the saints and all the Mahatmas and all the spiritually advanced persons and gives them a spiritual push. That is the difference between ordinary masters. They might be God realized, yet they don't have the same status as that of the avatar. Avatar has a special function. He comes very rarely. He comes once in a way, once in 700 or 800 years. And when he comes, the work which he does is irresistible. Not always intelligible to everybody. In their terms, in their ways. Avatar often works through opposition. He explained to me personally that that is Baba's way. You see. He invites, creates opposition where there was none. And it is through the opposition that he does his own work, because he is working through universal mind and universal consciousness, which ordinary people cannot do, you see. Avatar, because he enjoys universal consciousness and universal power, he can work through good as well as through evil, command the entire universe, and he can work what are called miracles without any difficulty, but he is beyond miracles.
Could you explain a little bit what Baba means by universal mind?
Yes. By universal mind is meant a consciousness which can vibrate in all the individual minds and which can express itself through all the individual minds. It is linked up with everyone and everything. It is not closed down. It is not like a window. It's not a small thing. His consciousness is not imprisoned in a separate consciousness. There is no consciousness of a separate individuality. He is actually universal in his consciousness. Not that there is no focus of his consciousness, there is a center, but he is universal in the sense that there is no sense of separation from anyone else, you see. He finds himself in everyone and everything, knows himself to be in everyone and everything, feels himself to be everyone and everything, and it's not merely a question of knowing and feeling, but he can act as if he was everyone, he can control everyone, and he directs everyone, he is a blessing for everyone, and is everyone. That is the experience of the universal mind. We cannot understand how exactly the universal mind works, and how he works through the universal mind, unless we can rise to those levels, but it is something unique, something altogether different from the individual isolated ego mind. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai.
Avatar
Meher Baba ki Jai. Yes. I am happy we have started with the Jai of Avatar Meher Baba. His victory is assured because his truth is eternally triumphant. I want to refer now to his visits to our side. He had started his fiery free life, and in 1952, when I was a professor of philosophy in Amravati, in 1952, he visited Amravati, our college, and we arranged a darshan program in our philosophical society known as Vidarbha Mahavidyalaya. Here, of course, one central minister, Dr. Punjab Rao Deshmukh, who also loved Avatar Meher Baba very much, you see, he received Baba very affectionately, and he was present. Baba was accompanied during this tour by many members of his mandali, and he was our guest. We were staying in a PWD bungalow, and he also paid a visit to Janata College and opened and inaugurated the Raman Maharshi Hall, mentioning that Raman Maharshi enjoyed a very high spiritual status. He gave another darshan in the Theosophical Lodge known as Brahma Vidya Mandir, and he paid a visit to an adjacent mast who recognized him as the avatar, quoting a well-known verse from the Bhagavad Gita. The verse says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutthanam dharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. He actually recognized the avatar in him and began to press his feet. This I remember. During this stay of Baba in December 1952 at our place, we wanted to perform his arti. The arti was composed by my wife Indumati, and usually he accepted the arti at our hands. When the arti is given through affection, he usually accepted it. This time he took the arti from our hands, and he himself began to perform the arti of a portrait of Avatar Meher Baba, which was on the walls of our hall. The portrait was painted by a Pandey photographer from Ahmednagar, and you can see a replica of that here. It's a reprint. In fact, it has been given now a slight twist so as to appear a sort of a bust, and if you put a bulb behind it, it begins to glow and becomes more radiant. I always prefer, so far as my puja room is concerned, all Baba photos to be like that. In 1953, beloved Avatar Meher Baba called me to Mussoorie in a hill station. Mussoorie is a well-known hill station, and I was looking forward to a very comfortable stay with him there. As compared with the dreadful heat of Nagpur, Mussoorie hill station would have been a very nice and welcome change to me indeed. I had never been to Mussoorie, and I was happy at that prospect. I went there, and I was certainly very happy to see Baba. One characteristic of Baba was that though you might be very tired in the journey, all that sense of weariness and being tired and exhaustion was swept away once you had a glimpse of him. You just had one glimpse of him, and it was all chased away. All the sense of weariness is completely gone. I thought that I am lucky to be with Baba, and I hope that I would be able to spend at least a fortnight with him in that hill station. But immediately after one day, Baba shifted the camp from Mussoorie, and he came down a little towards the plains. He came to Dehradun. In Dehradun, he was for 5 to 6 days. And it was at this time that he gave the first public darshan in Dehradun. I remember that at this time, when he was giving his first public darshan, one lady came crying, just broke through in the crowd and saying, save me, and so on, was weeping, and Baba was solacing her. And Baba made gifts of singer sewing machines to some ladies in order that they should be able to stand on their own legs and make their own livings. Baba's charity was not just merely illusory charity. He was really magnanimous, and he gave gifts. In fact, I had recorded this scene in my film, you see. Actually, we could see Baba giving that singer sewing machine to a very poor and destitute lady. After the darshan, again, Dehradun is comparably very cool place, regarded as a hill station, and I thought that I might be able to stay there for a long time with him. But Baba decided to descend into the plains in the scorching heat of summer, and in the first week of August, Baba arranged for 2 cars to be brought to him, and in one car Baba and a few people, and in another car his Mandali people. Just with these 2 cars, he started his Math tour. First we went to Rishikesh, and there we contacted a very advanced Mast called Nilkantwala Mast, about whom Baba said that he is so advanced that when he closes his eyes, he just sees God in the beyond state, and when he opens his eyes, he sees the entire universe. Then there was some sort of mystic communion, some sort of communication which was unintelligible to anyone else between this advanced Mast and Baba. And as a result of that, Baba decided to contact other Masts in the plains. We went to Roorkee, we paid a visit to the Dargah, and we went to Muzaffarnagar, and from Muzaffarnagar, Baba decided to go to Bijnor. Now between Muzaffarnagar and Bijnor there is a vast desert. Remember, now we had descended right into the plains, and it was scorching heat, literally scorching. And unfortunately, we had to cross a desert. While crossing the desert, our cars had to go along an artificial road which had been constructed by means of planks, and both the cars in the middle of the desert just slipped away from the road and got stuck in the scorching sands, with the result that for hours together it was impossible for us to get out of that rut, and we did not know what to do. There was no water to drink and nobody to help us to get the cars which had got stuck. Some villagers later on came and helped us to take out the cars, and with great difficulty we came again on the roads, artificial roads, and when we saw the waters of the Ganges, we felt very happy. But when we learned that we had to take the cars in boat in order to cross the Ganges, Baba changed his plan, and he came back again. Later on, of course, so many saints were contacted, and so many Masts of different grades, and there was one amongst them called Bambi Baba. He did not wear a single shred of cloth on his body. He was really young. He was very dark skinned, young, very energetic, and he was very nimble. When he heard of Baba's having come in the vicinity of village, he came there, and Baba actually, I saw Baba touching his feet, you see. That was the way in which he greeted the mas. Sometimes he bowed down to the mas. And when he did that, the mas just cried out, Saki. Saki in the Persian means one who gives, he serves the wine of divine love to others, you see. So he recognized in beloved Baba the person who gives divine love to others, you see. And he actually shouted Saki, and then immediately as soon as he received this divine love from Baba, he left the vicinity of Baba and ran away so quickly that it was impossible for any of the Mandali members to chase him or to follow him. Later on, Baba contacted many other mas. One of them was really very, very advanced, and Baba was very happy to contact him. He made us all bow down to him. He was also lying there, almost naked, there under the sun, in a very scanty shade, outside the village, not in the village at all. And there were people coming to him for darshan from all over, and that way we proceeded from place to place. On our return journey, after contacting some mas and some saints also, among the saints there were some Jains and some Hindus and so on. Baba also contacted some saints. When he contacted the saints, he contacted them incognito. They did not know who was contacting them. They did not know that it was Avatar Meher Baba who was bowing down to them or contacting them or who had come near them like that. From outwardly they did not know. If they had the power, they would know, but ordinarily they would not know. Incognito, this work was done. He contacted the saintly persons, he contacted some Muslim saints, some Hindu saints, some Jain saints, and several mas. And on our way back, one lady saint, Mastani Mai of Philor, at the dead of night. And Baba gave us instructions to keep awake throughout the night. This is very important, you see. All of us, all the members of the Mandali in both the cars were under strict instructions that we should not have any nap. He used to help us to keep awake by serving some sorts of pills, you see. He had some medicine with him, which was administered to us time and again, and we had to keep awake. So, Mastani Mai was contacted again at dead of night, and she recognized Baba, and Baba was very happy to meet, and we were all very happy to meet. She offered some cigarettes, Indian types of cigarettes, to Mandali members as well as to Baba, and so many things transpired there, which made us feel that Mastani Mai knew the spiritual greatness of Baba as none else knew. Later on, we carried on, and we could not stop anywhere. Sometimes there were punctures which had to be mended and so on. But throughout the night, we kept awake, and at dawn, we were in Rishikesh back again, when at Kankhal in the gardens, another mast was contacted. He was copper colored. He was also practically naked, and I saw Baba just standing erect but folding his hands to him, and he was happy. I liked this mast particularly because some of the other musts caught fright of my camera. I used to carry the movie camera with me, and I was lucky to get some snaps of Baba's must work, and I hope I will be able to get them together sometime. But this must I loved particularly because he encouraged me to take some snaps. Come, come, he said, all of you come as close to me as possible. Whereas there were some other types of must who just discouraged me, and one of the must, I was afraid of one of the must. I thought that he might almost break my camera, you see. He did not care to be photographed at all, you see. But this must I liked very much, and he also told to Baba some stories in Hindi. One of the stories was of a mythological type. He referred to a Rishi, Indian Rishi of old age, Puranic age, who had offered his very bone in order that the powers of darkness be conquered. Dadichi was the name of his Rishi. In fact, at that time, I did not realize the full significance of the story. I noted, only registered that in my diary. But now I see the full implication, because soon after that, Baba was to invite the suffering of the entire humanity upon himself and offered himself for fractures in the second Satara motor accident. You see. Actually, he did get his bones broken in that, and the story of Dadichi Rushi, to which they must refer, so to say, came to be true in his own life, in Baba's own life. Baba invited that sort of a thing in his own life because he wanted to invite suffering upon himself in order to expiate for the sins of humanity, to redeem it from the bondage which it had upon itself. Once I was the guest of Rustam Irani at Nashik, and he was very hospitable to us. It was tea weather. I felt like having a lot of tea, and Baba was with us. I was, in fact, Baba's own guest there, and I was staying with my family there. So, since it was tea weather, I felt quite at home, and our host offered tea, and he said, "Would you like to have another cup?" I said, "Yes, I will certainly have another cup." I had another cup. Then again he asked me, "Would you like to have another one? You can have another one." I said, "Yes, I will have." And Baba was there. I forgot that I was making myself so comfortable in the presence of Baba himself, you see. And Baba was observing me all the time. And immediately came an instruction from Baba to me. From now on, you are not going to have more than 2 cups of tea any day at all, you see. In fact, I observed that instruction, that order from him very scrupulously. Even if there was a slight overflow, even some drops overflowed out of the cup of tea, I did not have that overflow. I never have more than 2 cups of tea. This I observed for 18 years. Then when Baba stepped back into old life at Mahabaleshwar, in Mahabaleshwar, of himself, he gave an opportunity to his lovers. He said, if I have given any instruction to anybody from which they want any exemption, it is free from them to ask for an exemption. He just gave an opportunity. Not that I was very keen about getting an exemption, because I never missed my tea at all, you see. 2 cups of tea were quite enough for me for the day. And I had observed the order very scrupulously. But all the same, since the opportunity was thrown open by Baba to everybody, I just asked Baba, will it be all right for me to have more than 2 cups of tea now, you see, now that you are in a mood to relax your orders? And he said, yes, you can have as many as you like, you see. Then he has allowed me eggs, any number of eggs, you see. He wants me to be a vegetarian, particularly when I am in India. He would like me to keep to vegetarian diet. But when I am outside India, that restriction is not there for me. Now, I remember that in 1954, he sent one kafni to me. And that kafni was given to me with the instruction that it is intended for darshan by all MP lovers. In those days, MP was differently constituted. Now parts of the MP have gone to the present MP, and parts of them have been absorbed in the Maharashtra and so on. But the reference was to that old MP, Baba lovers in the MP for darshan. And it was my option to keep it in my personal charge or to give it to the center. I thought deeply over it, and I said, I am myself the center of Baba, because I have always believed ardently that every Baba lover is a center, and I never doubted that I loved Baba. So, treating myself as the center of Baba, I have kept the charge of that kafni with myself, you see. Though there is, of course, an organization, Meher Baba Center, the charge is with me personally. The kafni is in my charge. Then sandals of Baba, which he used at my request, have been kept by me. And there are so many other things associated with Baba. Baba's bust, bronze bust, which he unveiled at the time of the inauguration of Pune Hall Center, is also with me. He touched it himself, you see, and he unveiled it himself, you see. There are so many things associated with Baba. He played with marbles with my son. They have been kept by me. And generally instruction for me, which he gave to me in 1949, when he was to enter the bus body seclusion, was that I should try to spread Baba teaching in the way in which the Hindus would be able to understand it properly, you see, in the Hindu way. When Baba entered the bus body seclusion, it is known as the Great Seclusion in 1949, you see, he made people repeat prayers according to their own different religions. In fact, he asked me to perform kirtan. And when he asked me to perform kirtan, I performed a kirtan in which the chief story was that of Shankaracharya. In fact, Baba once, in a, I don't know whether he meant it, but he said, "You are yourself Shankaracharya." And he certainly appreciated the story of Shankaracharya, which I narrated in my kirtan, and he loved it very much. But his instruction to me was that the teaching of Baba, which I give, should be such that all Hindus would immediately understand it and grasp it and assimilate it without any resistance. At the time of declaration, I did not understand its meaning, and I was so much taken aback that I began to weep. I thought that Baba was going to drop the body very soon. He was going to leave us, and the thought was unbearable for me. Actually, I was weeping. But Baba said, "Don't weep, I will be sitting on your chest all the same, you see. Even if I drop the body, I will be sitting on your chest all the same," in a sense of humor. But that is an assurance from him that he will never desert me in any case whatsoever. His assurance, his personal instruction for me is that I should never waver in the thought as to whether Baba is with me or not. I will sit on your chest. These are his words. In the sense of humor, he has said that. That means he will be always by my side, and he has given me that personal assurance and an unconditional assurance, and he has kept it. I am very happy about it. He is always with me. Avatar Meher Baba has always discouraged rituals and ceremonies. He has never taken any antagonistic attitude regarding them. He has not opposed them. He certainly does not spurn at them. He can tolerate them. He certainly understands them. He has appreciated the role which they have played at a certain stage. We want to understand the place recognized by Baba for rituals and ceremonies in life. Beloved Avatar Meher Baba has not given much importance to rituals or ceremonies. In fact, he has often decried them. He has not taken up a very antagonistic attitude towards them. He has not downright condemned them. Sometimes he has tolerated them. He knows and he has said that they have played a useful purpose. They do play a useful purpose in the life of the masses and in the life of individuals at a certain stage. But for those who want to develop spiritually and attain freedom and truth and God, higher values, it is necessary that they should free themselves from the tyranny of the rigidity of rituals and ceremonies of all religions. There is no ritual or ceremony that does not bind, because it becomes a habit, and every habit has got a tendency to dim the inner light. There was a time when Baba prohibited his own arti being performed. In fact, there was no regular time fixed for arti in his darbars. He said, you may perform arti, you may not perform arti. Occasionally he allowed it, sometimes he disallowed it. Even embracing, he sometimes allowed, he did not allow. Bowing down, he sometimes allowed to people, sometimes he did not allow to people. he did not want that it should become a ritual. His own bowing down to people, he also was completely free with regard to that. Sometimes he insisted upon his bowing down to masses. He bowed down to the musts and saints. Very rarely, in some cases, he has bowed down even to his own lovers, you see. That is, of course, the lowest rung on which the avatar can descend for the sake of his love and for the sake of the loved ones, in order to give his compassion and grace to them. But throughout his life, he has himself remained free of rituals and ceremonies and has never given any instructions to anybody to keep to any particular or specific ritual or ceremony throughout life. Even the prayers, I have got deep respect for the prayers which he has composed and which everybody appreciates and advocates. They are wonderful treasures. They are centers of light, forces of light and inspiration. And when we repeat, we certainly get much light and inspiration. But I do not look upon them as rituals, as something which is binding and which must be done in this way and at this hour and must be done in these particular words and so on. But I look upon them as treasures of power and wisdom. They are not to be treated as rituals and ceremonies. It is true that sometimes Baba gave instructions that during a specific period, until a particular date, you have to recite a prayer. But that was only for that particular period and not for all lifetime. So we see that even with regard to the highest prayers which were composed by him, he did not want to bind people to ritualism. He wanted people to understand what they stood for, you see, what the Parvardigar prayer, Master's prayer stands for, what repentance prayer stands for. Merely repeating them like a parrot is not going to save humanity, give light. You have to understand, bring it into practice, become one with it. And if you have succeeded in doing all these things, then mere repetition is unnecessary. In fact, repetition is likely to hinder at certain stages. So, rituals and ceremonies have not been encouraged by him. I have composed some poems in Marathi as well as in English. I used to sing them to Baba very often. I used to sing the Aarti also to him. He encouraged me to offer Aarti at the end of many programs or in the beginning of some programs and so on. He himself invited me to sing some songs and so on. Sometimes I volunteered, sometimes he dictated, sometimes he ordered, sometimes he signaled, encouraged and so on and so forth. However, he never allowed me to become a victim of any particular habit. And when he saw that I cultivated a habit of singing a particular shloka or particular song at a particular time, then he discouraged me from doing so, because he knew that I was getting into that particular habit and it was not a spontaneous expression of feeling. So he saved me from being bound to any rituals and ceremonies. Once I was asked, why is it that I apply a tilak to my forehead here, between the eyebrows? I do not apply it by way of a ritual, and this matter was discussed in the presence of beloved Avatar Meher Baba himself. And I told him, there I see your sacred feet. Inwardly, your presence is there, invisible presence is there in my forehead, and I offer my respect to it in that particular way. And he did confirm it. He said, I am there, my feet are there. He said that. So far as I am concerned, I am not a believer in rituals and ceremonies, and I understand that to be the essence of Avatar Meher Baba's teachings. But that is the negative side of it. Not merely having rituals and ceremonies is not everything. You must have plenty of love, real truth, and something to express. And when you express anything, for some time, you need a form through which to express it. Forms can be common, and you can, if they are elastic, for some time you can repeat them also, as long as they do not become very rigid. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.